Well, that turned out to be more or less perfect. All the valves had some shims under the springs, and so I got them all between 1.92 and 1.93 installed height, except a few of them that there wasn't enough shims on, and they ended up with 191. But still, that's where we wanted to be anyway. So everything's wonderful. Now I'll see about putting them on. I guess I'll wipe these deck surfaces with lacquer thinner. That's just because I always do it that way, because I'm using copper coat. But this time I'm actually going to put them on dry because Velpro says to do it that way. So, but I guess we'll just do it anyway out of old habits. Now this engine came in here with head studs. So, but you can't put the studs in now, unlike a wedge, because the 426 Hemi, these are cocked up about 6 degrees. So if you put the studs here and bring that head straight down, they won't go in the hole. They'll hit up here. The aluminum blocks, this is made differently, where it's an oval here and a round hole here, so they'll go down, because aluminum blocks were made for top fuel and you take your heads off a lot. So we'll have to first put in the studs for the heads, the inside head studs, because they're cocked up, then put them on, and then stick the studs in. And then, of course, on the Hemi, the center row is for the rocker arms, so, and then we'll put those studs in too, and then tighten everything down. The Edelbrock and the Stage 5 and the Keith Blackheads have these little O-rings in here to try to seal the plug tube, and that way you won't get as much oil in there when you take out the spark plugs. And that's good and everything, but obviously it's going to be a little more work. I had to take these out when we sent them to get them the valve job done and ultrasonic cleaned, and they don't like to go back in, and so you fight them for about 30 minutes and you'll get them back in. But still, when you think they're in, you still want to test them, because the last thing you want to do is, when I oil this up a little bit with some oil and STP mix, if you wait till final, if you just think they look good, well, they may not be. It may try to wad up that O-ring when you try to stick it in. But if you wait till you've got the rocker arms on and the valve lash set and the valve cover on, and then you try to stick these in and it doesn't work, you're not going to be happy. So you try to check them out. When you hear it click, you know you made it, and it didn't bunch it up or anything. So this is good. Uh-oh. I'll come back to that one. I didn't really like it. Maybe I need to get a little more lube on here. You want these doing everything right, because it's no fun if it doesn't go right. Yeah. Just needed a little more lube. Now this is, okay, all of these are fine. This is even worse if it's brand new, because now you've got dry O-rings and a dry spark plug tube. And if you try to stick that thing in there, no, probably won't work. So make sure you put a little oil around that and a little oil on the plug tube, each one of them, before you stick them in. Otherwise, you're going to be unhappy. Okay, I've got one cylinder head on and one set of rockers, and tightened it down to about 30 foot-pounds just because. But the owners called and said they want new push rods. You know, those others were too short. So that's good. So let's measure for push rod clearance so Joe can get them ordered. Now all you have to do is have the cam on the base circle. If you don't want to chase that, you can just put the number 1 on firing, and then you know it's on the base circle. Because we have one head off, we can see that this piston's all the way up, and the number 6 comes up at the same time as the number 1. One of them will be on overlap and one of them will be on firing. And we see these cam lobes here, and so that means that one's on overlap and number 1 is firing. So I put 2 lifters in here. And now all we have to do is put in some checking push rods and make all this work. The first step is to, Mopar says you want 1 thread showing out of the bottom. They don't want the adjuster sticking way out because that makes it kind of weak, and you don't want it too far down because, as you can see, these things work at a pretty steep angle, and you don't want the cup hitting the rocker arm and breaking the cup. And if you will see motors when you pull the push rods out where the cup is broke because that happened. So first we set 1 thread out. Now some people may need granny glasses for this, and you might need granny glasses and a flashlight. So set this to 1 thread out, and it's a little hard to see. Let's call that 1 thread out. Now tighten up the adjuster nut. Now you drop in the, you can collapse this if you need to drop in the checking push rod. And now screw the adjuster or the push rod back until you get to 0 lash. Now we're at 0 lash. Now you want to adjust it a little bit and give yourself, we're going to go with 20 thousandths because his cam is 20 thousandths lash. And there we've got about 20 thousandths. So now you reach in and tighten up your lock nut so when you take it out of here you'll be able to measure it properly. Now you back off the adjuster. Unlike a wedge, this is easy because on a Hemi you just slide the rocker arm over and pull it out. Now we'll measure it. Now some people want to talk about overall length on a push rod, which would be, if it got ball push rod, that's fine, but you know, there's about 20 different cups in the push rod catalog, and I don't doubt if they're all a different depth. So I always want to talk net length, so I use a 250 thousandths ball and then measure it with a 12-inch caliper, and that's what we got. So now I'll do the intake and send the information to Joe. Don't forget to deduct the 250 thousandths off of your measurement before you call the pushrod people. And don't forget to tell them that you're talking about net length from the bottom of the ball to the bottom of the cup. Otherwise, you'll end up with pushrods that are overall length, and then you'll be right back where you were. Well, I found the smoking gun of why we need new pushrods. When the brothers disassembled the engine, and you know how sometimes you're in a hurry and you don't remember certain things, and they didn't put the lifters in a box where you could put them back in. And of course everybody tells you that you have to put new lifters on there if you don't know where they came out of, even though these lifters look brand new. So here is the new ones, and I use the same 1/4 inch ball to measure. Whoops. But look how much, they're a lot deeper. That's why we needed longer push rods. But these things look brand new. They're old ones. These are the old ones. They look brand new, and they're probably perfect, and you can't feel anything there, but everybody tells you you have to put new lifters in, and you don't. Because of all the cam problems people have today, you try to do everything they ask for. So that's what they're doing. So we had to have new lifters, and then that, even though these are bullet, but the new ones, and it was a bullet cam, and we assumed the same lifters, but anyway, it didn't work. Well, I think it's kind of nice that the brothers that own this thing are saying they're interested in going to the dyno afterwards, and that'll be kind of wonderful. I think they're wanting to know, they would like to go home with a warm and fuzzy feeling, to know that they've got more power because of the bad experience they had last time. But that's okay. I think it'd be wonderful. Maybe we can do that, and we should be able to get all that done hopefully before Christmas, if Kuntz isn't too busy down there. It'll take us a week to get the push rods, and then all we have to do is put them in, and then it'll be ready to test fire, and then we'll be ready for the dyno.